Alright, the stream has started. So today in Mr. Tucker's class, we were talking about how we were going to start, or how I was going to start watching these videos because I don't know anything about AP Euro. And he was like, yeah, I'll just stream it. So, making a joke. And I was like, wait, I could do that. So, I decided to do that. I don't really have a other reason for it, but yeah, so this is my journey to be able to finally understand and hopefully come in clutch for the mock exam Monday. Thumbs up. And I guess we could start now.
Okay, everyone, welcome to our AP European History Review. We will start off with the Renaissance. The Renaissance covered in three parts. First of all, humanism in the Italian Renaissance. Second, going on to classicism, the art of humanism, as we'll call it. And then the Northern Renaissance and the new monarchs. So first of all, on to humanism in the Italian Renaissance. The Renaissance is French for a rebirth. What is being reborn here? Keep in mind that, Europe has just been through the Middle Ages, which the humanists would refer to as the Dark Ages. Okay, dark because what was light before that? It was the Greeks and the Romans. Okay, so we are rebirthing classical antiquity, all of the good stuff that happened before this 1,000-year Dark Age. The High Renaissance, keep in mind, really centers about 1500. So if you keep the year 1500 in your head, you are going to be fine. So about 50 years before, 50 years after the year 1500, you're dealing with the High Renaissance. Go out a little bit more, you see about 1400 to 1600 total, okay? So, but really, 1450 to 1527, the High Renaissance, okay? Now, the center of the Renaissance was Italy, at least of the Italian Renaissance. And as you can see here, Italy is made of city-states. Many of those republics, meaning that they don't have kings. You see that the Pope is very influential, having his papal states there in Central Europe. Now, of course, Florence being the most influential of these republics. That's where Michelangelo is from. That's where the Medici are from. And so keep the Florentines in mind as well. The Florentines and the papacy are going to be your biggest patrons of Renaissance art. And let's understand the values of the Renaissance. Humanism, individualism, secularism, commerce, and invention. And we'll talk about each of those individually. The values here, humanism, individual, and secularism, that Michelangelo's David is really the best way to look at the Renaissance. As you can see here, Michelangelo's David is perfectly formed in every way. This is
Again,
about
a little
human
update
beings.
if y'all missed the intro. It was about I'm just trying to learn some AP Euro, man, and I don't know much about it, so, and me and my history teacher were joking about streaming it, so yeah, Mr. Tucker, the top, yeah, so that's that. Yep, so continuing.
A more secular way of thinking, a way of thinking that is still Christian, but it is not exclusively focused on the church. Remember, the Middle Ages are about the church. And so the church is still going to be a factor, but human beings are going to be the most important thing here. And so commerce and invention are going to drive the Renaissance. That's what's going to bring us money for the Medici. That's what's going to bring us the printing press, which is going to allow books and knowledge to be spread like they've never been before. And humanism is based on classical studies, okay? This was a program that was brought into practice by Cicero during the Roman period. And so humanism, the study of humanity, okay? When we think about the humanities, okay, we're thinking about English, you're thinking about history, we're thinking about anything that studies humanity, whereas then you have the sciences, okay, the things that, you study upstairs, math and science, engineering, all of those things, not humanism, okay? So humanistic studies, they are focusing on the study of humanity, history, art, literature, grammar. And the classics, okay? Keep in mind that the Renaissance humanists enjoyed works of Greek, Roman, and biblical literature. This is what you're going to see as the focus of Renaissance humanistic studies, and specifically all of these things in the original languages. So people are learning first Latin, then Greek, then Hebrew. Of course, most people are reading a Latin Bible. We'll see that people are more interested in reading the Greek New Testament rather than the Latin New Testament, going back to the original languages. Now, remember in the Middle Ages, St. Basil the Great is a great example here from the 4th century when he's talking to young men about the right use of Greek literature. St. Basil the Great was a Christian bishop in the early Christian period and is telling young men it is okay to read the classics as long as you have good reason to do it, as long as it's making you a better Christian. The classics here are a means to an end. Thomas Aquinas in his Summa Theologica, he is trying to take Aristotle and Christianity and put them together. Let them make friends with each other. Now, of course, subordinating Aristotle to Christianity, but he's not reading Aristotle in its own right. He is trying to come up with an excuse to read Aristotle. Like a Christian can read Aristotle and still be okay and not go to hell. So the classics here are a means to an end. They can be used to make someone a better Christian. And as you can see, you can use Cicero here to get to the Lord baby Jesus as a means to an end. Now, Petrarch, who is the father of humanism, just imagine Petrarch here with baby humanism, not nursing it like that guy on, Meet the Fockers or whatever, but Robert De Niro. But, he's, probably waking it up, giving it a bottle, that sort of thing. But Petrarch, the father of humanism, who had an obsession with, ancient Rome. Remember, he climbed a mountain. Why? Just to do it. No reason. He just wanted to experience that. He was reading about it when he was reading Livy, a Roman historian. He's like, hey, this guy climbed a mountain. I want to climb a mountain just to see what it looks like from the top of it, because all those cool Greeks and Romans did that. And so while he was looking around, he found all of these manuscripts of Cicero, now literal manuscripts, hand-copied letters of Cicero, works of Cicero that were decrepit, that were almost unreadable. And Petrarch wasn't happy. He felt like that the Middle Ages had forgotten about this classical inheritance, which he referred to as the Dark Ages, that these Middle Ages were not a time of, good stuff. They were bad, okay? These Dark Ages, that humanity had been in darkness. And, Petrarch felt that we had been robbed. Okay, now when we look at the fall of Constantinople in 1453, that's at the very beginning of the scope of AP European history, which starts in 1450. The fall of Constantinople was something for Greek Christians, not great for Greek Christian studies. The Turks closed down Christian universities, and so Greek humanistic scholars fled to Italy because people in Italy were hoping, well, I'd like to learn Greek. I would like to read Greek texts in their original languages instead of Latin translations. And so the Italians welcomed the Greek scholars. So really, the Ottoman Turks are advancing humanistic studies by taking over Constantinople. And so now this is expanded beyond Latin, but also into Greek. And so Plato's works are translated into Latin. So Aristotle was the Greek person that people like to read in the Middle Ages. Now during the Renaissance, people are reading Plato. And if you can't read him in Greek, here's a Latin translation. Read that. Now Pico della Mirandola, who read Plato's works and was heavily influenced by them, is most famous for his oration on the dignity of man, which is seen by many as the manifesto of the Renaissance. Keep in mind that these people that I'm going to talk about in their works make great fodder for DBQs, FRQs. Keep in mind on an FRQ, if you can
guys, we got to write the DBQ.
Put one name on there and one specific work, that's elevating your score. A lot of them don't have names. But Pico, in his Oration on the Dignity of Man, which is what we've kind of, called it afterwards, not sure he had quite a title for it, more of an introduction to his work, but he talked about how man is a miracle, that, you have the angels above, you have the animals below, but man right here in the center, okay, this very foundation of humanism, that man is in the center, and only man has a choice, that he can be up here with the angels, he can elevate himself, or he can plunge into the depths with the animals. The animals don't have a choice to be who they are, neither do the angels, but human beings have that choice, and we are at the center of the universe. And now notice here how even on Pico's portrait, he's got all of these, these Roman characters. You see V's instead of U's. You see all caps because he wants to be Roman. The humanists are obsessed with the Greeks and the Romans.
Dude,
so Martin Luther wrote 95 Theses. Pico's got him beat almost 10 times. 900 Theses. And in his Theses, he's trying to do what's called syncretism. Now, while Thomas Aquinas is trying to take Aristotle and come up with an excuse for reading it and trying to reconcile, Pico is doing this, but he's taking the Christian tradition and the classical tradition and bringing them together as equals, okay? So it's no longer any pressure to bring something in line with Christianity, but let's bring Christianity and classicism in line together as part of the general human experience. And so that is Pico, the author of the Oration on the Dignity of Man. And secularism, okay? So keep in mind that secularism is just saying that I'm reading this for its own sake. Secularism does not mean anti-Christian. We've got several centuries before we see attacks on Christianity during the Enlightenment periods following that. But what you see here is just, even though these people are Christians, they have a secular mindset, human-centered thinking rather than religious-centered. Petrarch's most famous poem was a poem called Africa, an epic poem, which I have yet to get a hold of in English, but Petrarch would have much rather me read it in Latin. So maybe I'll learn to read Latin and get a hold of it. But this is a poem about Scipio Africanus, who defeated Hannibal in the Second Punic War. And so his epic goes back to ancient Rome, and Petrarch won the title of Poet Laureate for this. And speaking of laureate, his other famous work, the Canzoniere, which is a collection of poems written to this woman named Laura, which keep in mind that, this has the same root as a laurel wreath, what he had been given when he became the poet laureate, but lots of sonnets that are to Laura, this woman that he loves but can't have. And, he's obsessed with her for years upon years upon years. And Petrarch, keep in mind, is writing the Canzoniere in vernacular poetry. When it comes to epic poetry, something for the guys to read, Latin, because that's what the men read. Now, the women learn to read in the vernacular. And so if you're writing love poetry, you write in the vernacular because you want women to understand it. So the humanists had to be fluent not only in the classical languages, but also the vernacular so that they could write these love poems as well. And Laura, as Petrarch says, illustrated by her virtues, well celebrated in my verse, appeared to me for the first time during my youth in 1327 on April 6th in the church of St. Clair in Avignon, in the first hour of the day, and in the same city, in the same month, and on the same sixth day, at the same first hour in the year of 1348, withdrew from life while I was at Verona, unconscious of my loss. Her chaste and lovely body was interred on the evening of the same day. Her soul, as I believe, returned to heaven whence it came. Her chaste and lovely body, which shows us the ideal woman of the Renaissance, that she is chaste, okay? She practices chastity. She is neither a skank, a hoe, any of these things that y'all call people nowadays. And then she is also lovely. She is beautiful, okay? So a beautiful and virtuous woman is the ideal of the Renaissance. And for Petrarch, that ideal is represented in Laura, who we're not sure who she was or even 100% sure that she existed. Some people told Petrarch that they thought she didn't exist, and Petrarch got kind of upset about that. Read the poetry, decide for yourself. Machiavelli, okay? Now, keep in mind, he's most famous for writing The Prince, which the goal here was Machiavelli thought, Mussolini's going to think the same sort of thing later on. but maybe one day we could bring back the Roman Empire. Now compare what the Roman Empire was. This great empire controlled by the Romans, the Italians, and then look at Italy today. That we can't even unify Italy. Okay, the Romans were able to unify the whole Mediterranean, and we can't even unify Italy. And so Machiavelli wrote The Prince, which was an advice to rulers, and the advice to the type of ruler who would be strong enough to unite Italy. And to do that, you might have to compromise on some things. Okay, Machiavellian tactics are tactics where the end justifies the means. That no matter what I do, as long as I accomplish my goal, it doesn't matter. That's what we see in politics a good bit today. Machiavellian tactics, the end justifies the means. Keep in mind, Machiavelli, most famous for writing that it is better to be feared than loved, because if you're loved, that can change. Feared doesn't change. Somebody who loves you will betray you. Somebody who fears you will not, according to Machiavelli. Castiglione, you could run into, wrote the book of The Courtier, which is about how to be a respectable and respected gentleman. Even some stuff in there, how to be a good woman. Remember, a beautiful woman who practices chastity, who knows how to read and that sort of thing. But Castiglione, really a gentleman's handbook that he is writing for people seeking to be courtiers, to live high-class lives at a ruler's court. In commerce, Lorenzo de' Medici, your most famous commercial figure. Remember the Medici Bank. This is something where the Medici made a lot of money, and a lot of that money was given to artists so that they could produce these works of art that we're going to look at in the next segment.
They were
Usury
patrons.
had been banned by the church. The church during the Middle Ages had said that Christians cannot lend money with interest, which is basically saying that Christians cannot lend money. Who's going to lend money without interest? You going to do that? No? Okay. Typically, you want some kind of interest. This is why during the Middle Ages, Jews got involved in banking, because they could lend money with interest. And
Patrons,
so
yes.
Now keep in mind that the church is still
I
around,
have
but what
a
is that
viewer.
ism that dominates
That's
the
crazy,
Renaissance
man.
now? Even though people are still Christians,
Support the light of underscore shadows Patreon. Yes, spread it around, please. I'm trying to get everybody to pass this.
So the Medici and others start lending money with interest.
Put it on your
and so the Medici
Instagram
family, prominent
or something.
for their bank, and they become rulers of Florence. They become
So
patrons of the arts. Artists including Michelangelo, who we'll be looking at in a bit. Invention, the printing press, a great invention of the Renaissance. Gutenberg is who you'll associate with this. Experiments with movable type. Instead of having to create a literal manuscript, having to write with your hand, you just have to put the type on there and you press it down, and you can do that as many times as you want and make multiple copies. And so the printing press,
Dude, that's
one of the first
crazy.
things come off
You
of
must
the
have got
Gutenberg
millions
Bible.
for that one,
About
man.
180 copies of the Bible, written in Latin.
Gutenberg
Okay, of
made
course,
that.
and
I
that
gotta
will
remember
become
that for the
contention
DBQ
Martin Luther
on
in a
Monday.
bit, but 180
Or,
copies of
if
the
it's
same
asked on
book.
the multiple
And now
choice.
we're looking at books becoming more available, becoming cheaper, and becoming more widely read. So we start to see a literary culture come up, whereas literacy had largely been restricted to monasteries during the Middle Ages. And so we can also get information out there. I can bring something to my local printer and I can say, I would like such and such copies of this. And the printer sends it out and it goes all over the place, which is going to be one of the causations of the Reformation.
Hey,
and so in just a bit,
Karcher, can you tell me if my link's working on Instagram? I don't know how to do the Instagram link stuff. Alright. So I'm gonna review what I learned. Alright. So the Renaissance. It's not well, how do you make it work then? I don't know how to put a space after. That's so dumb. Let me fix that real quick. Alright, bet. Hold on. Gotta put a space afterward. It's still not working. like gosh, I'm so disorganized. Like, I don't know how to do this stuff. Maybe that's what you need to do. I don't know. Why must it not work? Hold on, bro. This is it right here. Oh, alright. I see what you have to do. Alright. There it is. Alright, guys. There it is. Now it's there. Now it should be working. Karcher, can you QFax check me on that? Alright, bet. Alright, I had to put it in a website category. Apparently they added that a while back. So that's good news. So now, the Medici family, they were patrons. 95 Theses, created because of indulgences and the wrongdoings in the church. Alright. There's a bunch more information in there. I'm sure if it was brought up I can catch it, but I can't really bring it off the top of my head because I don't know how to do that. So I'm gonna go back to a part where I kind of started focusing on the stream real quick. Just kind of for a little bit. Patrons, yes, exactly. Patrons.
And so keep
Church.
The Florentines in mind
Yes.
as well. The Florentines and the papacy
They there.
The biggest patrons of Renaissance are.
Patrons, again.
And let's understand the values of the Renaissance. Humanism, individualism, secularism, commerce, and invention. And we'll talk about each of those individually. The values here, humanism, individual, and secularism, that Michelangelo's David is really the best way to look at the Renaissance. As you can see here, Michelangelo's David
you got secularism and humanism.
Think about the humanities, okay? We're thinking about England.
That's more of humanism, where it's talking about people trying to become more human aware instead of church. Oh yes, please. Go ahead. I don't know how to contact him though, but if you know how to send it to Mr. Tucker, go ahead.
The Renaissance humanists enjoyed works of Greek, Roman, and biblical literature.
Alright, who else is watching? Who else is watching? Put your name in the chat or something.
Humanistic studies, and specifically all of these things in the original languages. So people are learning first Latin, then Greek, then Hebrew. Of course, most people are reading a Latin Bible. We'll see that people are more interested in reading the Greek New Testament rather than the Latin New Testament, going back to the original languages. Now, remember in the Middle Ages, St. Basil the Great is a great example here from the 4th century when he's talking to young men about the right use of Greek literature. St. Basil the Great was a Christian bishop in the early Christian period and is telling young men it is okay to read the classics as long as you have good reason to do it. As long as it's
he's the dude that's talking about
Christian.
Like giving excuses to be able to do it so it'll make it right. And I already watched this video fully through. I'm just going back to see what I could pick up.
And put them together. Let them make friends with each other.
There's classics, man. It's crazy.
Christianity, but he's not reading Aristotle.
You gotta love the classics.
He is trying to come up with an excuse to read Aristotle, like a Christian.
It's so
read
good.
Aristotle
You should try it.
Still be okay and not go to hell. So the classics here.
He just said, "Heck, I'm gonna have to end the stream there so I don't get demonetized."
You can use Cicero here to get to the Lord baby Jesus as a means to an end. Now, Petrarch, who is the father of humanism, just imagine Petrarch here with baby humanism, not nursing it like that guy on, Meet the Fockers or whatever, but Robert De Niro. But
money, exactly.
He's, probably waking
Who's
up,
the other
giving it a
person
bottle,
watching,
that
though?
sort of
That's
thing.
who I'm
But
wondering.
Petrarch,
Like,
the
it says there's two people
humanism,
watching.
who
I wonder if
had
it's
an
counting
obsession
myself.
with, ancient Rome. Remember, he climbed a mountain. Why? Just to do it. No reason.
Sounds
he just
about right.
wanted to
That's the reason why I
experience
took
that.
AP
He was reading
Euros,
about
just to
He
do
was
it.
reading Livy, a Roman historian. He's like, hey, this guy climbed a mountain. I want to climb a mountain just to see what it looks like from the top of it.
But I'm gonna start skipping through again, just to be able to get on to the next video. I already watched this one full through, so yeah.
And of Constantinople in 1453, that's at the very beginning of the scope of AP European history, which starts in 1450. The fall of Constantinople was something for Greek Christians, not great for Greek Christians.
You know, since we're Android users, and you have Android 9.0, we already know, like, you're able to do that. iPhone users, but it's fine.
Because people in Italy were hoping, well, I'd like to learn Greek. I would like to read Greek texts in their original languages instead of Latin translations. And so the Italians welcomed the Greek scholars. So really, the Ottoman Turks are advancing humanistic studies by taking over Constantinople. And so now this is expanding
Insert heart
Latin,
emoji
but
here.
also into Greek.
Oh crap!
And so Plato's works are
dude,
translated
PC
to
Mastery
Latin.
stuff.
So Aristotle was the Greek person that people like to read in the Middle Ages. Now during
Dude,
the Renaissance,
I wanna now
reading
figure out how to send this to
Plato,
Mr.
and if
Tucker.
you can't read him in
I wanna
Greek,
like send
here's
it to
a
him through
Latin
email or something.
translation.
I know he
Read
reads
that.
his emails.
Now Pico del
Insert kiss,
Mirandola,
kiss,
who,
heart eye,
read
heart eye, heart
Plato's
eye
works
emoji.
and was heavily influenced by them, is most famous for his oration on the dignity of man. He's name on name, work, but in pulling himself, to be, and we hear how you see the humanist. So Martin Luther wrote 95 theses. Pico has gotten beat almost 10 times, 900 theses. And in his theses, he's trying to do what's called syncretism. Now, while Thomas Aquinas is trying to take Aristotle and come up with an excuse for reading it and trying to reconcile, Pico is doing this, but he's taking the Christian tradition and the classical tradition and bringing them together as equals, okay? So it's no longer any pressure to bring something in line with Christianity, but let's bring Christianity and classicism in line together as part of the general human experience. And so that is Pico, the author of the oration of on the dignity of man. And secularism, okay? So keep in mind that secularism is just saying that I'm reading this for its own sake. Secularism does not mean anti-Christian, even though these people but hold of it in the second collection of poems written to this woman named Laura. Which keep in mind that, this has the same root as a laurel wreath, what he had been given when he became the poet laureate, but lots of sonnets that are to Laura, this woman that he loves but can't have. And, he's obsessed with her for years upon years upon years. And Petrarch, keep in mind, is writing the Canzoniere in vernacular poetry. When it comes to epic poetry, something for the guys to read, Latin. Because that's what the men read.
That's kind of hot.
The women
I like manly poetry.
In the vernacular. And so if you're writing love poetry, you write the vernacular because you want women to understand it. So the humanists had to be fluent not only in the classical languages, but also the vernacular so that they could write these love poems as well. And
so back to the fall of Constantinople or something like that. I can't remember what he was talking about.
People in Italy were hoping, well, I'd like to learn Greek. I would like to read Greek texts in their original languages instead of Latin translations. And so
because they closed the Christian universities, so Greeks fled to Italy. All right.
The Ottoman Turks are advancing.
So I pretty much got everything from this video, just in and out. I'm just gonna go ahead and skip to the next one. Yeah. So classicism. Dude, this is intense right here. I'm not even lying. Like,
okay, we've just discussed humanism.
I don't even know how to
let's move on
express
to
it. It's
classicism,
crazy.
the art of humanism. Now, keep in mind that this is not an art class, but it is a class about Europe, and we are going to look at how humanism influenced European art at the time of the Renaissance. So keep in mind the connection between the values of humanism and the products of Renaissance art, of classical art, are going to be emphasized on this exam. We've seen FRQs about that. We've seen questions. So keep in mind.
So I think I'm gonna end up doing this tomorrow, and maybe the next day. But yeah, I think I might create a schedule like that.
Okay, got that. Art in the Middle Ages. Now, if we look here, we see two-dimensional, and what kind of coloring? And then religious subjects. Okay, so you see a sample from Western Europe, Eastern Europe. That really you're not seeing anything outside of religion. You're not seeing any attempt to represent things in 3D, any kind of perspective. Really kind of boring by our standards. We've seen much more interesting art in our time. And so let's look at characteristics of classical art. Now keep in mind, I always show you Raphael's The School of Athens as the prototype here. When you're thinking about classical art, always call this to mind as the work of Renaissance art that perfectly captures all of these aspects of classicism. The first being bright, vivid colors that we see here, that, in contrast to those other works of art that we looked at, this reaches out and gets you. Everything here is bright. It screams at you. So we see perspective, depth, realism. It's an attempt to portray this as if you are looking at it. Third, balance. If you look here, everything's balanced. If you see something on one side, there's something on the other side. And the fourth, classical themes. We see that Greek, Roman, and biblical themes predominate in classical art. So here you see the bright colors. You see the perspective. You can see the 3D look to it. You see the balance, that Plato and Aristotle are at the center. Speaking of classical figures, okay? So Plato and Aristotle at the center, everything branching out. We can see Socrates there corrupting the youth. We see Diogenes sitting on the steps. We see a lack of Christian figures in this painting. So you see the secularism of the Renaissance. And then you see here that woman is Hypatia, who is actually torn apart by Christians in Egypt in the early Christian era. Is this a rejection of Christianity? No, but it is a statement of the value of the classical tradition and how the Christian tradition is not in any way superior to all of this, that this is the epitome of humanity. So again, vivid, bright colors, perspective, balance, and classical themes. If you keep those four things in mind, then you will be able to discuss things intelligently on your AP European History exam. And the masters of the Italian Renaissance. You've seen your Turtles, Leonardo, Michelangelo, Raphael, and Donatello. You'll see them as well as a few other artists in this slideshow. So there is Donatello's Saint Mark. This is one of the earlier ones. Keep in mind that the High Renaissance peaks around the year 1500. So this is very early in the Renaissance. So here is a biblical figure who is standing contrapposta. Okay, if we look here, this whole standing on one foot. One leg is straight, the other leg is going to the side. The weight is on one leg when somebody has a contrapposta stance. And here is St. George, once again. Now, this is an early Christian figure who is standing again contrapposta. Donatello's David. Now, notice here, whoa, he's naked. Yes, he's naked. This is something that was prevalent in Greco-Roman art, not prevalent in Christian art in the Middle Ages at all, bless you. But Donatello here sculpts David in the nude. And this is the first freestanding nude sculpture of the Renaissance. And so since the classical period, the Romans did this sort of thing all the time. But you've had 1,000 years go by where nobody in Europe is sculpting naked people standing by themselves. Of course, this guy's got company. He's got Goliath's head that he's standing on. And we see here an early Renaissance painting known as the tribute money, which you see here, three different little things here. It's the whole story about the biblical story of the tax collector from the temple coming to Jesus and saying, it's time to pay your temple tax. And Jesus is like, well, don't have any money. So he tells St. Peter, he says, St. Peter, could you go over there, there's going to be a fish, and just open up the fish's mouth and look inside, and you'll see a coin. Bring me that coin, and we'll pay our temple tax. In fact, it'll be enough for me and for you. And so St. Peter does that, and then gets it to the guy in the overly short tunic. But now what you see here is this this perspective, chiaroscuro shading, where we see that at the center you see the Lord and the tax collector in his short skirt, and the disciples. Now, of course, you also see halos. They're still being respectful, but you see the vivid, bright colors. You see the balance here as well. But the use of lighting to bring attention to certain parts of the painting and put something as your focus. And so there is the Mona Lisa, which is one of Da Vinci's works. I'm not nearly as impressed with it as other people have been, but at the same time, you see behind Mona Lisa that scenery. You see the perspective there. Looks like a little road that you could go down to on your way to a lake or something of that nature. And the Last Supper, which of course has launched all kinds of conspiracy theories and that sort of thing. Now, of course, the Last Supper, this was an experiment of Da Vinci's, and the painting has been very hard to preserve. This is what it might have looked like. This is one of Da Vinci's students who was copying it, and that one's turned out a little better. But once again, balance. You see at the center the Lord with his disciples. You see 6 on one side, 6 on the other. You see a biblical theme. You, of course, see the perspective that the room is clearly in 3D. Leonardo's Vitruvian Man. Now, this is from his sketchbook, but of course, humanism here. Wanting to sketch the human body is what Da Vinci's doing here. Michelangelo's Pietà. Now, here you've got the classic picture of the Mother of God holding her son after his crucifixion. Keep in mind that she's larger than he is because she is the focus here. He's not the focus. She is. And her grief holding her son as he's pulled down from the cross. Now, of course, individualism we see coming through here a bit. If you look here, Michelangelo, the story says that he heard somebody looking at it and asking, who did that? Now, keep in mind that the Renaissance is the beginning of the elevation of the artist. The artist used to be an artisan. That's where we get the same word for both. That this person would be about the same as a stonemason or somebody like that. But now we see the glorification of the artist. Michael Angelus Bonatorus Florent Faciebat. Michelangelo, a Florentine, did this. This is my work. Went in there after hours and sketched that on the Mother of God's chest. Later on, he regretted that. He thought maybe that was a little egotistical. He never signed one of his artworks again. But you can see the enormous ego of the artist, that these medieval artists, we don't know who they are, but we know who these people are because we know what they did. We know that they were proud of their work and that their work gave them a good place in society, a very exalted place in society, that artistic talent is something that's valued during the Renaissance. And so there, Michelangelo's David, as I said, the epitome of humanism. As you can see here, when you read the biblical text, you could read a miracle into little teenage David slaying Goliath with some stones, but this guy doesn't need a miracle. This guy is the epitome of humanity. And he is ready to kill. He is ready to do anything that he wants. He is ready to be what he wills to be, as Pico would have said in the Oration on the Dignity of Man. And so once again, the contrapposta stance, where you see him putting his weight on one of his legs, one of his hips, and he is ready to strike. The Renaissance here is in full maturity. This is in the midst of the high Renaissance. There's Michelangelo's Moses, which, of course, Moses portrayed with horns here because of a mistranslation in the Latin Bible. This was at a papal tomb, the tomb of Julius II. Now keep in mind that the Medici were big patrons of the arts, so was the Catholic Church. And so here is the Sistine Chapel in Rome, in Vatican City, which hopefully some of us will get to see when we go to Europe next spring. Michelangelo was one of many artists who painted the Sistine Chapel. Michelangelo specifically painted the ceiling and also the backdrop where you can see the Last Judgment. The most famous painting in the Sistine Chapel is the painting of the creation of Adam. And there is, is God having breathed life into Adam. And if you note here, you see that their fingers are not quite touching, but whose decision is this, that their fingers are not touching each other? It is Adam's decision. And so really, what keeps Adam from elevating himself? Only his own decision. And you can see here that, this man is held back only by himself. He can be whatever it is that he wills himself to be. Michelangelo's Last Judgment, which, I'm not an expert on art, but I've been told it includes some of his enemies going down there into hell. And also, I can't really point out from here, but there's somewhere where he's portrayed on here as well. A lot of times artists would place themselves into their work at this time. And the Michelangelo here is a very exhausted Michelangelo. It's kind of like playing Where's Waldo here with all of these figures. I'll let you pause the video and find it if you really want to look for it that bad. And another painting from the Sistine Chapel, the Delivery of the Keys. Of course, keep in mind that the Pope is the one who's commissioning these works of art. So, hey, how about that bit where Jesus gives the keys to Peter? And remember, popes are all successors of Peter. And so Jesus is giving the keys to the kingdom to St. Peter and saying, upon this rock I'll build my church. What you shall bind on earth, I shall bind in heaven.
I think Graham's on.
I shall loose in heaven. And that goes for all of your successors too, including the current pope, who is my vicar. And keep in mind in the back here, you see the perspective here.
One of my goals, which will probably not get reached, is to be able to get Mr. Tucker on the stream. So if any of y'all know how to reach Mr. Tucker, y'all should all send them links to the video.
Of Greco-Roman architecture. One of Michelangelo's last paintings of the conversion of Saul. This is moving a little beyond the Renaissance, not quite as balanced, a little more chaotic here, but one of my favorites. The School of Athens, okay? Remember, this is the epitome of Renaissance classical art. And, of course, while the Renaissance was very, focused on men, okay, it's focused on men, but there were some artists, such as Raphael, who painted women, okay? So Raphael, known for his paintings of females. Of course, Raphael,
this is going to get me demonetized.
Very interested in women. There was one time one of his patrons had to bring a woman in because he couldn't stop thinking about this woman and couldn't get his work done. And so he said, okay, I'll bring her over there to live with you so you can get your painting done. Here is La Fornarina, which the baker's daughter, who is this woman, allegedly one of his many
apparently she's a thought.
Same woman here, La Villata, which not remembering what that means right now, having one of those Rick Perry moments. But, there is another woman there. And, of course, this one here, the young woman with a unicorn. Remember, we said that was painted over at some point. Somebody put a dog there because I guess a unicorn is a symbol of magic or something like that. But just holding her baby unicorn. Pretty cool stuff. And Renaissance architecture. St. Peter's Basilica, a Renaissance building. As you can see here, the balance, okay, there's one column there, and then you see another column, another dome. You see a dome on each side. You see statues up there. You see a big dome in the middle. And of course, you see columns. You see, if you look from the center, one side of the building looks just like the other. So in imitation of Greco-Roman architecture. Symmetry, proportion, domes, columns. Those are the things that you're looking at here, that everything's symmetrical, proportional. When you see domes and columns, you know that this is Renaissance architecture. Now here's somebody's villa. And notice that when you look at this side of the villa and this side of the villa, it's exactly the same. There's a floor plan there in the corner, and you can see that all four sides of this villa look exactly like the others. So
yeah,
this is taking the symmetry thing to the point.
I think one more video after this. Hope it'll be more on later dates, but one more video after this, and probably end it for now, and for then, and then after that, I will probably then stream the next. Dude, Tom Ritchie goes hardcore, I swear. Dude.
Hey there, students. Hope you don't mind walking with me. I'm going to the football game. I've been trying to teach students about humanism and the Renaissance, and I kind of feel like I failed. I assigned some readings from Petrarch, and
failed. Mr. Ritchie could never fail.
So this stuff is so great because here was somebody who was in love with
the
this
brother
woman,
of
Laura,
Mr. Tucker,
for 21 years, and then he realized, hey, look, I'm making myself miserable. And thing is, as relevant as I might have found it, I realized something, okay? I'm teaching 10th graders, and while I may think, okay, surely we have all been in love with someone that we can't have, they haven't, okay? They don't really understand this. I mean, Petrarch just seems overly dramatic.
That's crazy.
And so I'm really kind of at a loss for understanding, okay, how do I teach humanism and this idea of self-reliance and the idea of borrowing from the classical and Christian traditions? So I was at the gym this morning listening to a little August Burns Red, and it kind of occurred to me, okay, so maybe my 10th graders haven't been in love, but some of them may have banged their head a little bit before. And you're going to find a lot of humanist themes in music, and specifically in August Burns Red's song 30 and 7, which is loosely based on Psalm 30, verse 7, which says, "By your favor, O Lord, you made my mountain stand strong. You hid your face. I was dismayed." This talks about, okay, the Lord hid his face for me. I was dismayed. When the Lord was with me, I'm like a mountain. Now, August Burns Red, a Christian metal band, employed this tradition, but really made a song using this text, a song that really emphasizes not so much dependence on the favor of God, but more self-reliance. Okay, so in this song, the recurring lyric is, "Your mind is the mountain before you," that you are miserable because you have made yourself miserable. It says here, "Can you hold the water responsible for your wayward behavior any more than it blames you for its gripping currents?" So are you going to sit there and try to blame something else because you're miserable? Or are you going to realize that you are responsible for your own state of mind? And that's what they're really getting at here. And so they're employing a classical text from the Bible, and they're using it to promote this theme of self-reliance and quit feeling sorry for yourself and quit trying to blame something or someone else, and take control of your life and your own happiness and embrace your own human potential, and do that in a spirit of inspiration from religion. But even if you draw that inspiration, you have it in your power, your own.
Wait. I just realized something. All right. Hear me out. This dude's walking to some sports guy. I think it was like football or something. And And this dude's pulling up quotes from, like, the Bible and, like, and song lyrics and remembering all this stuff. Dude, how does he retain this stuff? Like, he's literally just walking. He decided to make a video when he was walking to a football game just out of nowhere. Just like, yeah, I guess I'll make a video. I mean, this dude's like, he's up there with Mr. Tucker. It's crazy, man. Dude, one day I'll get this good. I'll just have to live stream the same thing over and over again, but I'll get there. It'll be fine. Yeah.
God-given power as a Renaissance humanist would see it. To
also, like I said, my schedule is to be streaming the next day, which is tomorrow. I guess is a better way to put it. Yeah, but tomorrow and then maybe Saturday as well, if all goes well, so I can finish the series of Tom Ritchie's 10 Week in 3 days. Because I don't know anything about AP Euro, and yeah.
Be something better, okay? To take control of your own life. And so a challenge I might think of to my own students is, how can they find humanist themes in music that they listen to? All right, so maybe we can make this a little bit more relevant. Who knows? I mean, I'm just always trying to find ways for students to actually understand the things and the concepts that I'm trying to teach them. So hopefully that helps, and maybe we can find ways to employ humanism to be happy and to take control of our own lives. Remember, subscribe if you haven't already. My website, TomRitchie.net.
And he's making an outro. While just walking out, he's like, out of the blue, you could tell this dude had no script. Unless he did, and he just bamboozled us all. But gosh, this dude is like, Alright. Gotta keep watching.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, like, dislike, all of that stuff. I'm gonna go to the game. Go Tigers. Until next time.
You know what? Go Tigers. That was crazy. That was crazy. Real crazy. I'm just saying. He always opens up with these crazy, like, songs.
Hey, AP Euro. Today I'm going to tell you everything that you've ever wanted or need to know about Machiavelli for the AP European History exam and for life. This guy's not going to go away. You're going to hear about him in political science courses. You might even see occasional references to him in pop culture and about
Dude, I hope I meet him in heaven, man. That's going to be crazy.
We're going to talk about Machiavelli, and this is the first part of my series on civic virtue in the Renaissance. And what civic virtue is about effective political leadership. Civic virtue is not virtue that we're used to thinking of in terms of moral excellence, which is the type of virtue that you see a lot of the Renaissance humanists seeking after. Machiavelli is not about virtue in the sense of moral excellence in the traditional sense, but about virtue in the sense of effective political leadership. By Machiavelli's standards, Bill Clinton was a virtuous leader. Now, this is not someone we're used to thinking about as virtuous. After all, just plug his name into YouTube and see what comes up. Bet you're going to get something like this.
But I want to say one thing to the American people. I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Well then, for all we can say about Bill Clinton, he did sign a welfare reform bill, and he did this while the other party, the Republican Party, was in power in both houses of Congress. Our current president's always complaining about how the Republicans won't work with him. Well, Machiavelli would say, get some civic virtue, okay? Your predecessor was able to work with the other party. Presidents have been able to do that, and so what you need to do is possibly read The Prince, which is a book by Machiavelli who had a dream, okay? Machiavelli, like other humanists, was obsessed with Greece and Rome. So for Machiavelli, this is the ideal, the Roman Empire. And Machiavelli is reading about the Romans and this great empire that they put together, and it gets him thinking about Italy of his day. Look at this. Now, at one time, Italy had controlled the entire Mediterranean world. And in Machiavelli's day, Italy wasn't even unified. He had a dream of someone stepping up and unifying Italy, something that's not going to happen for hundreds of years. But when he looked at this Italy, divided into Naples, Florence, the Papal States, Genoa, Venice, all of these city-states that are warring against each other and constantly being engaged in quarrels, he's thinking, why can't we put something together more like the Roman Empire? And what Machiavelli's thinking is, how could this be done? And more specifically, what kind of leader would it take to rebuild a unified Italy? A strong leader.
I'm glad whoever here stopped by to learn some AP Euro with me. It's pretty cool. Had a few people on.
This is how they should rule.
One time.
And if we were going to put the prince into just one
man of such class,
phrase, perhaps
takes a nice
think of Machiavelli as the
slow
anti-hippie.
Sit out of his mug and continues on with his lecture. What were the Romans good at more than anything else? Students think of this dude?
They were good at war. They built a great empire by being good at war. So Machiavelli notes that when princes
a man of a little over 100,000 subscribers.
Looking back at the history of Rome, you see this happen. The Romans become soft,
he's making his way,
and then they lose their empire. So first of all, be good at war before anything else. And what we see throughout The Prince is Machiavelli's sense of pragmatism. Pragmatism, the idea of doing what works, the idea of abandoning values in the traditional sense. And so Machiavelli notes from the very beginning, it being my intention to write a thing which shall be useful to him who apprehends it, it appears to me more appropriate to follow up the real truth of the matter rather than the imagination of it. He's not trying to be like Plato or any of these other people that have written about the ideal state. Machiavelli claimed that he's doing something different because he is writing about the state that works, the ruler who can do what needs to be done. That is pragmatism. What is it going to take to get the job done, values aside? No more ideals. Okay, we can see what happened to Socrates.
Dude, that was rough.
According to Machiavelli, a man who wishes to act entirely up to the professions of virtue soon meets with what destroys him. Hemlock, anyone? All right, Socrates was a very virtuous man in the traditional sense, but was he an effective leader? No. In fact, Socrates was condemned to death by the people.
So chances are, if you clicked on the Instagram link, you probably won't be able to comment. Not that you probably would want to anyway, but yeah, I mean, but like you probably are brought to the Instagram webpage, which isn't signed in, so therefore you can't make a comment. So I'll probably use an iPhone. I don't know how to use an iPhone Safari browser type thing, but the name's Light_Shadows. Click on that. You should see like a little LOS white little logo. If you go on your YouTube app and search that up, click it, you're able to comment then because you're signed in, yeah. So that's that. Continue it. Just make sure you're signed in with your YouTube account and search up Light_Shadows, and then you should be able to get on the live stream, start texting that way. But yeah, let's continue.
Of his home city of Athens. And so let's remember what civic virtue is. Civic virtue is effective political leadership, not principled political leadership, but effective political leadership.
Follow him at Tom Ritchie. Gotta always put that plug in, but make sure to actually follow him.
Machiavelli writes that it is necessary for a prince wishing to hold his own to know how to do wrong and to make use of it or not, according to necessity. So you need to know how to get your hands dirty when you need to so that you can do it, note, or not. According to what? According to necessity. Doing what needs to be done. And this is where we get into the term Machiavellian, which a lot of times is misunderstood. A lot of times we may think of Machiavellian as cruel. If somebody's a Machiavellian ruler, that is a cruel person. No, that is an effective person. So sometimes to be Machiavelli could be to be nice. If the situation is one where you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar, then by all means use honey. But if you need to use vinegar, use vinegar. And so the idea of Machiavellianism is that the end justifies the means. Did you get the job done? That is the only question, not who needed to be killed or anything like that in order to get the job done, but were you effective? And if you were effective,
that's
then
what the
you have
Prince
been
was about.
Now, if you have been completely cruel and you have been ineffective, then you have not been Machiavellian. So in order to be Machiavellian, there is no set criteria other than to be effective.
Oh wait, let's admire this meme real quick. I'd rather be feared or loved. Would I rather be feared or loved? Both. I want the people to be afraid of how much they love me. Dude, that's powerful right there. I'm gonna have to write that one down. That one's crazy. I'm not even gonna lie, but I'll continue. Meme blender, dude. That's where you get all your memes from.
Is the philosopher behind this classic phrase that it is better to be feared than loved. Now, of course, we all want to be loved. We would love for people to love us. And Machiavelli says, yes, in an ideal world, we would love to be both feared and loved. We would like for people to be afraid of us and to love us. But what if you have to pick? An effective ruler would rather be feared. Now, case in point, those of you watching this video are taking AP Euro, probably trying to get out of your readings. Now, I'm sure that you would rather be watching one of these viral videos, rather than watching this, okay? But the reason you're watching this is not because you love your teacher, okay? I love my...
differently than what he said, Mr. Tucker is the second closest thing to relative at that school. So, dude, Mr. Tucker, yeah, man. Dude. Yep. All right.
AP Euro teacher so much.
Gosh, it's so bad.
That I'm going to watch e-lectures on YouTube about Renaissance philosophy. No, you are watching this lecture right now because you believe that your teacher is about to give you a test or a quiz. You are afraid of failing
Pretty
the
much.
AP European history exam. Don't fail the AP European history exam.
All right, now I don't have to worry. I mean, I won't fail now.
Watch my videos. This is why you are watching. You are watching right now out of fear,
why.
not love. Because fear is affecting
crap.
people.
Dude, he brought that back to a point, bro. That was crazy. Dude. Alright. I have to sit back and think about that one. That was
Love
crazy.
you as long as you're doing what they want and as long as things are good. People can fear you when times are good or bad, happy or sad. So if you have to pick one, it is much better to be feared than loved. But don't push it. Okay, don't push this whole fear thing to where
just
you
don't
end
push
up,
it. If you push it, you'll screw
just
everything
making
up.
everybody hate you. Okay, so Machiavelli says,
feeble
be careful about that. Don't push it. Nevertheless, a prince ought to inspire fear in such a way that if he does not win love, he avoids hatred, because he can endure very well being feared whilst he is not hated, which will always be as long as he abstains from the property of his citizens and subjects and from their women. Now, where he gets this is from the ancient Roman story that we find in Livy. Of course, he's a humanist, about the rape of Lucretia, who was the most virtuous woman in the city of Rome, and she was raped by the king's son.
Dude, that's
in defense of her honor, after she told her husband and his friends what had happened, she killed herself because she could not live with herself with a stain on her chastity and virtue. Keep in mind that Lucretia embodies this same type of woman who is beautiful to the ancients, to the folks in the Middle Ages, and to the Renaissance humanists, this woman who is beautiful and virtuous. And so when the king's son raped this woman, when this story got around, the Romans ran King Tarquin and his family out of Rome. And it was because of this atrocity. So stay away from people's property, and especially stay away from their women. So walk a fine line.
Stay away from people's property. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Tom Ritchie. Thank you.
To be Machiavellian is not to be cruel. It is only to be effective. So a quick recap. Pragmatism is what Machiavellianism is about. Okay? That if you are Machiavellian, you are trying to do what works, what needs to be done. The end justifies the means because you have to be effective. If you were effective, then you were successful. If you were ineffective, you were not successful. And then finally, if you have to choose, it is better to be feared than loved. And that's all I have for you today. Feel free to subscribe. That way you'll see when I post more e-lectures for AP Euro.
All right, guys. That's been the end of part 1 of the Tom Ritchie series. I'm going to be doing one tomorrow and one the next day, I believe. So thank you, and it's been fun. Make sure to like and subscribe for the next few days. Yep, bye.